On today's episode of Real Talk.
It was prostitution on this block. It was guys walking down the street toting guns on this block. It was guys selling drugs on this block.
We're looking at the issues of urban life in America.
This is real America right here we're going to look at today. The problems, social problems, drugs, alcohol, education, all the things that people are struggling with in America.
Or what about the stereotypes of living in the hood? Are they really true?
America's favorite place to get mugged probably looks something a little like this.
Stay tuned as we have real talk on these issues, as well as the role of poetry and religion.
Men run the nation, but women raise the generation.
How do they do this in America? Maintain their balance, Muslim, non-Muslim. Join us for this program. I'm sure you'll enjoy it to get a real glimpse of America.
So we're coming to you with real stories, real issues,
and real views from here in the USA.
Real stories.
Urban life in America is very diverse, fast-paced.
You telling me the prayers of those people, those among our people, weren't accepted? Do you really want to monopolize salvation?
This is Real Talk USA.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Real Talk. My name is Faik Malik. I will be your host, along with our distinguished panelists, to discuss the various aspects of the urban life. And also, what are some positive or negative aspects of living in the inner city, and how religion has played a spiritual role in some of those challenges. I hope that you've been enjoying our series thus far, because we have a great discussion here for you today. Now, let me introduce my distinguished panelists. First, from Silver Spring, Maryland, we have Pierre Ahmed, who is a master's in economics and is currently working for the U.S. Department of Labor. Assalamu alaikum, Pierre.
Wa alaikum assalam.
From Chicago, Illinois, we have Haroon Gurel Sahib. He is a community activist and is currently attending Chicago City College and is a psychology major. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Next, we have from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Ahmed Nuruddin, who is the current vice president of the Philadelphia Jamaat and is currently a teacher, I believe, in the Philadelphia school system. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So that's the panel. We also have a studio audience here today. We will be gathering their perspective as long as this current conversation is going to be, and we will be getting their perspective throughout the show. But first, let's go to the general public and get their viewpoint on this subject as well. Here is the word on the street.
We're here at the radio station now, 900 AM WURD, and tonight we're going to be discussing about spirituality and urban life, how the urban situation, urban issues affect a person's spirituality, and what solutions that the Holy Quran and the advice of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ provides for the issues which people face in the urban setting.
Ahmadiyyat has been one of the fastest growing communities.
Is that a call coming in?
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to our program, Ask Islam, which is presented by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and our motto is love for all and hatred for none. Tonight, we're going to be discussing about urban life, and particularly how it is that the issues in urban America affect spirituality, and particularly with regard to the youth.
So we're over here in Bed-Stuy, home of Biggie Smalls, but soon to be home of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Inshallah, hopefully we'll build a mosque here and do our part to help out Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York. Urban life here in Brooklyn is really no different than urban life here in America. It's all the same. The players change, the buildings change, but the essence of the life itself remains the same. Inner city life or urban life, people live in 2 or 3 family buildings, or in some cases projects, houses as many as 300 or 400 or 500 families. So naturally, there's no possibility of a backyard or a front yard, a white picket fence, and a dog named Chipper. Maybe a pit bull in the next building, next door, where the drug dealers live, but otherwise, the youth have really no place to go. So crime, poor paying jobs, poor education, broken families, these are the issues that plague these areas. It's like the vicious cycle where they said if you live in a poor neighborhood, you go to a poor school. After you come out of that poor school, you get a poor paying job, which puts you right back into a poor neighborhood. So the next generation faces the same challenges. So as a result, you'll find that many of the areas are filled, since these aren't homes, with front yards and backyards. What you'll find is that the youth, the next generation, is out on the streets. Idle time is the devil's hands, as they say. Passing by here, the churches are abandoned, but the homeless shelter is full. You see? And so the homeless shelter is full, but the houses are boarded up. So where are the people? This is the question. The people may very well be where we've seen the liquor bottle over there, out on the streets. And so what's on the streets waiting for them? The liquor bottle. You see? So everything is in its improper place. So when everything outwardly is in its improper place, and in the meantime, the houses of worship have been abandoned, then where are the people on the streets along with the liquor and everything else?
Essentially, you're going to have challenges in an urban setting, in any setting, but particularly in an urban setting. If you could just remember that you have been empowered and instilled from your birth to have and hold certain values dear to you. And those values are not to imprison you or to restrict you, but those values are to help you and to guide you, particularly in times, in tough times, and in urban settings or any type of setting. So essentially, it comes down to two things for our youth. It comes down to the choices that they make and how they respond. And all of us are going to be confronted with challenges. So the question becomes, how do we respond?
Interestingly enough, that 1990 it marked a record year in Philadelphia for homicides. There were over 500 homicides in the city of Philadelphia in 1990. God Almighty has created each one of us for a great purpose, and to take that creation and to end that life which God has created, I think many of our youth don't understand how heinous that is in the sight of God, how much He despises that action of taking of human life without just cause.
So this area here, this is St. Bartholomew's Church. It's a very old, actually, Episcopalian church here. So over time, they've increased the police presence. The area has actually undergone a bit of a change, but you have so many cases over here in this section, children being hit by stray bullets while they slept in their beds. So this is the reality of this area here. It's not the worst area in Brooklyn, but there were several campaigns. There still are campaigns, like this sign here. Don't shoot, I want to grow up.
over the years, it's become a trend among the youth to have devalued education, because everybody nowadays seems to want to be a rap artist or a sports athlete or an actor or a comedian or something, and they figure, well, I don't need to be educated for that. And and by these people being put on the television and the radio in front of us all the time, the youth are starting to think that's what success is. And they want to strive for those things, and they're giving less attention to the classroom and thus not giving the proper value to knowledge. There's hundreds and thousands of programs that get put on every year talking about the problems. Absolutely. But now let's talk about the solutions and how we're going to get to that, and what God Almighty says in the Holy Quran on how we can, as Muslims, as people who believe in Him and who rely on Him, how it is that we can start to reverse this trend in our communities across America.
As parents, we have to instill a strong sense of integrity. And integrity is essentially our taqwa base that tells us to do the right thing when nobody's looking. So if I have to say, okay, what is righteousness? What is spirituality? It is doing the right thing when your parents are not looking, when nobody is looking. It is doing the right thing and holding fast to those values.
Yeah, we have Brother Jacob who's calling in. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How you doing, brother?
Very fine, brother. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for your patience.
Yes, sir. I'm listening to the program, excellent program, and one thing as a Muslim for about 35 years now, and I'm seeing that Muslims, we're going to have to teach our young that Islam is more than just wearing a kufi, a jalabir, or some henna in his beard. This is religion is about following a man who taught Islam and being like the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. This man was the most excellent character.
That's right. And the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, he said that the best garment or the best dress is the garment of righteousness.
Yes, taqwa. Yes. Consciousness, God consciousness. And that's what I try to get over to them. And, they listen. But again, if we don't teach it, we know the people of dunya not going to teach it to them. So.
Yeah. You must be true to yourself. And yourself means to hold fast to the taqwa-oriented values that you have been instilled with. If you do that, you can face any urban setting, any urban challenge. You can face it with a lot more confidence, a lot more surety, and no doubt a lot more success.
Everything revolves around the unity of God. When the mind and the heart of the person is centered on the unity of God, then individual's life is put in order, and then family life is put in order, and then communal life is put in order, and then the life of nations is unified and put in order. This is how you change the world. The world is changed one person at a time, practically, not just in ideal and not just in claim, with practical reformation revolving around the oneness of God.
We have a sister named Sakina who's calling in from New York. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. I just wanted to say really quickly that one of the things that caught my attention is the fact that the brother previously mentioned that some of the Muslim kids act worse than the non-Muslim kids. Yes. And, it's imperative that we remember that we have to start to train our youth up from the womb. This is the most important thing. We have to get Allah and the knowledge of Allah and the fear of Allah in our children from the womb. This is imperative.
When you look at the different scenes pictured in this mural, you've got sports, good community. You see, you even got a woman there building or setting up a building, a structure, right? This is exactly that saying. Men run the nation, but women raise the generation. See, at the disintegration, if you will, of the women, the nation suffers because it's the women who raise the next generation. You see? So here you have the fruits, and you've got the children here, right? So the children are both the fruits of the parents, but the children are also the fruits of a society. So if you were a gardener, what kind of fruit would you try to harvest? Good, healthy fruit? Right. Or rotten fruit? You see, a sick tree produces rotten fruit, and a healthy tree produces healthy fruit. You see?
Essentially, it comes back to taqwa. And taqwa, you have to want it bad enough. You have to want it bad enough to go out and fight for it. You have to work day and night for it. You have to give up your time, your peace, even your sleep for it. And you have to dream and scheme about it, because the life in this world and the next will be worthless without it. You have to fret for it. You have to sweat for it. You have to surrender your fear of the opposition for it. And when you have that, when you embrace that righteous, consistent good conduct, it will take you to those lofty planes of success that so many before us have prayed for.
Lord, I'd like to thank all the brothers who joined me here in the studio and all those who called in and participated. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So that was a very interesting segment of The Word on the Street. I'm sure that many of you can relate to some of those viewpoints. Now, let's get right into the discussion. So one of the first questions that we have in this topic is, what is urban life? You know, I myself am not familiar with this subject, so Pir Saab, could you please help define what urban life is?
Well, before we start to talk about what is urban life, I think we actually need to define the word urban. Urban means a densely populated area, normally a city. For example, our nation capital, Washington, D.C., is an urban area. New York City is also an urban area. Chicago is an urban area. But normally, for the most part, and lately, the word urban has taken on different connotations. The media has now begun to use urban to mean various ethnic groups, poverty, high crime areas, where there are very small or lacking various amenities for social life in itself. So that is sort of a subcomponent of urban life. It used to be called the inner city or ghetto, all right? So that would sort of be an introduction or a definition on what urban life is.
And urban life has actually evolved throughout time in the past 2 or 3 decades as well. And I know Haroon Saab, you actually live in Chicago in the inner city. Could you please give us your perspective on what is the urban life?
Oh yeah, well, urban life in America, I would say, is very diverse, fast-paced, consists of poor people who struggle for survival, the working class who work for the American dream, I would say, and the wealthy people who work hard to try to stay wealthy, and that's how I would describe the urban life in America.
That's a lot of different aspects as well, because you have a couple of decades ago where these inner cities were highly populated and a lot of money was going through, and now you have these inner cities where they're lacking some funding, and like you said, the American dream is now not as easily attainable as it was before. Let me switch to Ahmed Nuruddin. You're from Philadelphia. What is your definition of the urban life?
Well, in my perspective, the urban life, I would see it as sort of the center culturally and as far as commerce for a society. And I think that over the years, the lines of urban, suburban have become a little bit blurred because with the advances in technology, more information is easily spread across those lines. And more people come into the cities to do their work and to go to school, although they may live outside of the cities. So the influences are there on both sides because so many people are just going back and forth. So I think it's not as clearly defined as it once was.
So that's very interesting points. You mentioned two different things, social and I think educational as well, coming from your background in education. Let's go back a little bit and let's talk about some of the social issues, some of these struggles that I've been hearing about, so on and so forth. Let's get some various aspects of this. Pierre, could you please talk about that?
Well, if we're talking mainly about the inner city areas within the urban community, one of the challenges that families and individuals who live in these inner cities is the lack of adequate education, all right? The lack of jobs, the lack of decent housing, right? You know, so individuals who live in these areas, again, have the same desires and goals and needs like other individuals have, but again, these resources are either lacking or provided on a very inadequate basis. To give you an example, when we talk about education, for example, some of the latest statistics are saying that about 50% of the individuals who enter high school only complete high school. You know, so that's a very high dropout rate compared to, for example, the suburban areas where they're probably close to 80 to 90% who are actually going on to higher education, where individuals in the inner city, again, are dropping out for various reasons. And of course, with the high dropout rate, that sort of perpetuates not being able to find an adequate job to support themselves.
And the educational quality itself is not at the highest level anymore. I mean, considering you have this statistic, I would say that maybe the educational quality has dropped as well. I mean, the funding and everything.
Well, our educational system is basically funded by the real estate taxes in the various communities. You know, so for example, the very affluent communities, their school districts receiving more tax revenue from their community, where in the urban areas where you have very low real estate value, they receive very low, you know, revenue from that. So again, the school system is not adequately funded.
Sure. That's a really interesting perspective. You know what, I think it would be a good idea to get some perspective from our audience. Naveed Bhai, could you please, maybe coming from Chicago, you're a business major, I believe. Could you please give us some perspective on what it is to be learning in the urban life?
Well, I wouldn't go so much as university because a lot of times a university is not in densely populated areas, but in densely populated areas before university, there are a lot of struggles in the urban environment. For example, the students get crowded into a class, and also these students come from a lot of times single-parent homes because that's also a symptom of the urban community and the urban life. And when that happens, they also have a lot of struggles in terms of identity, you know, and you'll see a lot of young males, they'll be, you know, prone to violence or even prone to depression and a lot of different things that manifest themselves in a variety of different ways. And then these people are the ones that eventually drop out and they find other ways to, you know, go and prosper in that life because they don't have teachers who care about them because the teachers are not funded enough to care about them. Those teachers are usually from different areas who don't have that same perspective of those kids.
That's a very interesting point that Naveed Bhai brings up. Now, I think we've talked a little bit about sort of this overview of that, you know, we have some struggles and we have these, you know, educational struggles. What are some social problems that we have in these inner cities?
Okay.
What are some of these inner city problems? I'll direct that to Ahmed Nuruddin, please.
Socially, in the cities, the problems are probably very much like the problems anywhere else in the country. Because again, with the information that's being spread so quickly through the internet, and through the television and other media outlets, you know, we're all exposed to the same type of information, and socially we get influenced much the same way. So it's not much different what happens in the inner cities than may happen other places in the country. Now, the lack of education and the lack of funds and adequate employment and such, it affects the people socially, because a lot of people I come in contact with in Philadelphia, they want to live that good life. They want to have that nice house and that nice car and all like that, but they don't have the background that's going to help foster a lifestyle like that. So they go into, a lot of times, illegal means or other criminal type of activities to try to acquire that lifestyle, which they have been shut out of because of deficiencies in other parts of the community.
I'm going to turn to the audience here and try to get some perspective on trying to attain sort of a better lifestyle and some of these key issues here. Has anybody actually from the audience incorporated themselves maybe socially or wanted to touch on this topic? I think Austin wanted to mention something, if we can get the microphone.
Assalamu alaikum. I was going to say, I'd like to hear some perspectives from the panel on how being in an inner city life, but being associated with the Jamaat, and having how that may have benefited you and helped you in your personal life, and how you feel like that could help other youth in your area, having the influence of Jamaat, how they could leverage that, maybe how you may have leveraged that to avoid certain influences that you may have succumbed to had that not been there.
So I suppose the question is essentially, how do we build these relationships in these inner cities, and how Islam, I believe, has played a vital role in doing so?
What was it that particularly helped you from the Jamaat? Was it, going to the mosque? Was it praying? Was it reading the Holy Quran? What was it particularly that helped you to avoid those vulnerabilities that other youth are, exposed to?
And I think another segment of that is actually to add to that is, what was it about Islam that attracted you so much? Because I don't think everybody initially was, a part of Islam fully at one point, and I think that's an extremely important point, is that what is it about Islam that is, inspired you so much to go out there? Maybe.
I know in Philadelphia, I know in Philadelphia, and I'm sure it's like this in a lot of urban settings around the country, that everything seems to be based on the pleasure principle. Let's have fun, let's entertain ourselves, let's go out and mix and mingle, and this is what people want to do aside from their occupations and such. Being a member of the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, it gives us a social outlet to come and be with people and socialize on a good level, on a spiritual level, as opposed to the level which other groups are socializing, which is, again, based on having fun and playing around and not having anything progressive about it, but just in the moment. Whereas we as Ahmadis, we always are looking forward to the hereafter, we're looking forward to the future for ourselves and our families, to imbibe the teachings of the Quran and to move forward in that way. And so being a member of the Jamaat, it provides having a social outlet. We can come together and have fun and athletics and all of that too, but it's for a higher goal and a higher purpose.
So let me quickly, okay, go ahead, Rumbai, actually.
So I think remembering Allah, when you establish a strong relationship with God and know that it is a true living God that's there, that's watching, and that is one of the highest virtues, to remember Allah in everything you do. And maybe you think twice about getting involved in certain things within your surroundings, your environment, and also try to follow the examples of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. And that'll give you a lot of respect, because those are universal examples, universal principles that respects a lot of mankind, and a lot of people will respect you for that. These are no examples that's telling you to do anything terrible, bad, it's just examples that show you how to have respect for humanity, because everybody are human beings before anything, before your religion, before your ethnic background, anything. So that's some of the main issues I would like to touch on.
And that's an interesting point that you mentioned repeatedly. I think was respect amongst the, your peers is extremely crucial, and sort of building that respect in itself through your religion is a very valuable aspect to have.
Can I add something to that too?
Sure.
Because prayer and fasting also becomes like a shield for you from the negative influences of the society. For instance, when you know you have to wake up for prayer, Fajr prayer in the morning, you're not going to be staying up all night long on the internet or playing around. You want to get your rest in so you can be fresh to make your prayer. Fasting during the month of Ramadan and at other times, you don't, want to engage yourself, and you build up that spiritual muscle within yourself through fasting to resist some of the temptations. Giving your chanda. You don't waste your money frivolously on things because you have to pay your chanda. You're not going to go out and spend it on, the latest trendy little thing, and know that you have to pay your chanda at the end of the week or end of the month. So in these various ways, it helped me personally to kind of stay away from those influences of the society.
That's a great point. I think I want to turn to the audience here very quickly just to see what are some of these aspects that Ahmed Nuruddin Bhai and the rest of the panelists are talking about in the sense of, prayer and steadfastness, I believe, has helped you become better as a person, and your overall lifestyle. Considering this fast-paced, environment that we're in, a lot of us are students or we're working in these mixed environments. We have to be on our guard all the time. Can anybody sort of touch on that briefly, please, Ishmael Bhai?
I don't know, like being a Muslim and an Ahmadi, it's made a lot of situations easier for me, like right off the bat. Like people know in my high school that I'm Muslim, so a lot of things I don't even have to like deal with, whereas like girls and blah, 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 they just know. And a lot of things like drugs, alcohol, parties, people just, generally like don't even, that's not even like an issue for me.
So you've been able to adapt yourself in a sense that you can basically prevent yourself from going here or there, and make yourself focused on your overall goal and
exactly.
Be steadfast.
Just by being a Muslim.
Would anybody else actually like to add to that? Yeah, please.
For me, it was more of an educational experience where when I entered this school, I was in the late 80s, people really didn't know much about Islam. And I found myself educating my peers, letting them know what Islam was, what our fundamentals were, and what we believe in, and how certain things are forbidden. And I don't do them merely because I don't want to. I do them because Allah says not to do it, and I want to make Him happy.
Right. So, I think that's an interesting point that you mentioned, is that expressing to the people who were not fully aware of what Islam was. And I think today, in the media, Islam is portrayed completely differently. And so we have an even bigger objective to sort of clarify to the general public what it is. Maybe one more comment if anybody'd like to, please. Ahmed Bhai.
I think one of the things that helps a lot, these days we hear a lot about support groups. In an urban area where it's densely populated, if you find a clique or a group of people that can have positive reinforcements for you and for the rest of the group, it goes a long way in keeping yourself focused and keeping you away from any distractions.
It's a very good point. I think this conversation is actually coming to a really, really good point of your self-perspectives and things like that. What we're going to do is we're going to take a short break here for part 2. Please stay tuned for part 2.
The thing about America is its diversity is its beauty and its challenge. In every aspect of life, its diversity is amazing. So when you speak about America, one thing we want to, kind of showcase is that diversity. And diversity will have diversity in expression as well. As Prophet ﷺ said, sometimes you have to express in other forms that can strike hearts and minds. And this is the goal, is to convey the message into the mind and the heart of those who are used to getting the message through that medium. And poetry is one of the mediums. We hope people will step back and listen and try to hear the message behind the rhythmic style in which is coming. We in our Jamaat have poetry, and I think people will enjoy it if they begin to listen to the message.
Search to find peace of mind. I happen to find mine through Islam. So this is a poem that I did. It's related to African Americans, you know, and it's dealing with African Americans who predominantly are Christians and those who have become Muslim. So there's a relationship between African American and Christian and Muslim African American. So this poem was addressing that issue. I did this for a Black History event we had at the mosque in Chicago some time ago. So I call this poem Pork and Beef. Should I go? Okay. Just because I don't eat pork don't mean you gotta have beef with me. Just because I don't believe God had a baby daddy or was his own baby daddy don't mean that I'm not your brother or you ain't my sister or that we haven't suffered together through stormy weather on ships upon the Atlantic. And it makes me seasick to see some among my people looking at me with pity. You telling me the prayers of those people, those among our people, weren't accepted? Do you really want to monopolize salvation? Because in the process of getting that version, we were raped, lynched, drowned, shot, set on fire, thrown on the trains and trolleys. Did I mention we was enslaved? And yeah, enslaved by hypocrisy, but still, you should consider all that more than a fair trade if you really want to monopolize that salvation and juxtapose a verbal or nonverbal agreement, a declaration of all those who couldn't wade in the water of that religion in the past, in the present, and in the future. To see blacks that Mad Max dogmatic is tragic, but even more so surprising, because whenever I hear those lighter complexion evangelicals evangelizing, I get this sinking feeling. Trying to keep this black rage stored up like canned goods to the day I gotta crack open a can of I am a man like on a picket sign, but I'm not trying to picket this time. Through the thicket of the wilderness, we all search to find peace of mind. I happen to find mine through Islam. My great-great-great-grandmom found hers through the best thing available at that time in those ever so trying circumstances, trying not to shirk her own suicide due to the murky chances her time in this life would ever get any better. Of that, she caught no glimpses, no glances, no divine revelation about society's future cultural advances. Just faith. And yeah, faith in a white man on the wall. And even if he had been black, that don't even matter. What matters is despite our debate over whether that first commandment had indeed been broken, my own ancestor carried the torch of black spirituality that was blazing, smoking in the darkness of the wilderness. She and those like her found and followed the best path they could see. And Jesus didn't have followers like that since the 1st and 2nd centuries. I'm not lying. In this American Coliseum, slavery was the lion. And true believers in the messengers of God have been dying in the past, in the present, and in the future. Will those who follow the Messiah of this age suffer the same? The writing is on the inside wall of my brain as it processes accusations masked as questions. Why was all the terrorists Muslim? See there? See there? Why was all the slave masters Christian? No, see, you got to understand the context, young man. You want a universal religion? Join the fold of hypocrisy. You see, the devil's missionary work, Shaitan's tabligh effort, ain't no joke. His dawah has power over certain kind of individuals who choose to follow, but I can no longer allow him to divide us. I didn't convert to indirectly declare my grandmother's faith as unreal. I just reverted back to the ideal. And certainly not to monopolize salvation. Was it never meant to be dismissive of the salvation so many Christian Negro slaves most mercifully gain? So apologies in advance for that Muslim trying to run game, you know, where they say that religion enslaved you. Brother with not the best tact coming across to you like an attack. Half is how he says it, half is how you listen. And maybe in his eyes the light of Rasulullah didn't glisten. But even on days in close to perfect submission, brothers and sisters still think I'm on a suicide mission with my Islam. They be checking me out like I'm the bomb. And it's that thought right there, that thought you're entertaining. I like to catch that out and about in a public place and blow it up. I got over 400 years of genetic memories chained to my chest, ready to detonate like 500 million final prayers made while sinking into the abyss, sinking. And I'm thinking events like 9/11 don't even factor into the equation, because just like we saw past masses interpretation, rose up from our church pews only to face Sunday picnickers and barbecues, we can see past Osama's version with far greater ease. Because since before bin Laden, Africans been having Juma on Fridays, festivals on E-days, and direct communication with the Creator, who spoke to the righteous and pious among us, spoke through dreams, visions, and revelations, and still speaks as we strive to spiritually rise and peak. And is that not what we all seek? My ex-girl asked me, why you want to be Muslim? Well, I can give you a hint. I can give you a clue. The last prayers of a dying man was that one of his descendants might ashhadu Allah ilaha illallahu. Thank you.
Welcome back to Real Talk. Today we are discussing the various aspects of urban life. We're going to further dive into the social and spiritual aspects of urban life. I want to open up with a question. Rumbai, how is some of these religious backgrounds that we mentioned help some of the youth that are growing up right now? How can we make that a better pathway for them?
Make it a better pathway for them. First, it's all about Allah. It's establishing a relationship with God. It's developing a love for God in your heart, knowing that God is there. God won't abandon you. And once people get to recognize this, then seeking God, and they can start walking according to the guidance of God, and doing things appropriately, and following examples of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and look at what's going on in our time. Keep up with your own time, and quit depending on so many stories and things from the past, to help you organize your life in this day and age, because God provides, for us a guide in this day and age, also a guidance.
So what I want to get into maybe is what is the message that people are looking for? What is the message that people need right now to help them out, maybe through whatever struggles that they may be facing? Here, right? Maybe.
If we're talking about in the urban areas, in the inner cities, again, they are experiencing the same challenges and problems that everyone is experiencing. And they need the same message that we as Ahmadis are trying to provide to the world, all right? And our approach, we should be very creative in ensuring that we address those questions and those challenges to them using the medium that they are currently utilizing. I think initially that we need to be very careful and not to buy into a lot of the negative stereotypes when we talk about the inner city and those individuals who live within those areas, and approach them, with respect, as that we are concerned about their well-being as humans, and that we actually have a message that will benefit them. So I think that is the thought process and how we should address the issues that are currently dealing with the people in the inner city.
Emin Nuruddin, what do you think?
Well, thinking about the urban perspective, I like to go back and think about the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Mecca at that time was an urban setting. And many of the problems that are being faced today are the same problems that existed then. And the same solution exists now as existed then. And that is the word of Allah, which he revealed to the Prophet of Islam in the form of the Holy Quran. And it is going to apply as much today as it did then. Those people were they were changed completely by this revelation which was received from God, and the people of this modern day can be changed completely as well. But we have to be active and let them know that the cure for their ailments is here, is available to them, and we can help them get that. And it doesn't take a long time, but it just takes the effort, and it takes the real concern from us, and because nowadays, basically, the satanic element of society in general has made bad good and good bad. We have to try to, set things aright the way the Prophet of Islam did through the message of the Holy Quran.
We get a quick perspective from the audience. What do you think is the message that people need, particularly relating to the urban environment? If anybody could just give, some brief perspective maybe on what that message, could be. Sure.
Well, just to sum up, I think education is key. For me personally, I know language is fascinating to me, written, and there's also the oral aspect as well. To go back to the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a quote I read from a hadith. I'm just going to summarize it, but one of the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, said that after the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he never heard anyone as eloquent and as persuasive in their speech as Hazrat Aisha. So language is key in winning people over to your side, be it written language or oral language. And that's something we can definitely instill in people in the inner city areas.
Okay. Anybody else, please?
A lot of times even in the depths of the hood, there are lots of Muslims. The only problem is they're not organized. And so one Muslim community, another Muslim community, you go to this mosque, I go to this mosque, they can't get organized. And that's where, since we are so organized, we need to go into that environment and really bring these people out of that depths of darkness, and each individual can become a light that guides so many other people. And they don't have to have money, they don't have to have, a huge organization helping them, they don't have to be super eloquent, you know what I mean? But you have to have love for the people. And when the people see that you have love for them, they start to develop a love for you and what you love. And when they do that, it's just a cycle, and one person, infects another, and it keeps going. And I think on a very basic level, love of God is something that we can instill with them, and that's the most important thing.
So just to wrap up here real quick, what is some of the, after having discussed all of these different topics, what do you want our viewers and our audience to take away from this discussion? Pierre?
I think, again, most important that be very careful and be mindful of the negative images that the media and other elected officials try to portray of the urban area of the inner city. Also be conscious of the fact that the individuals who live within the urban areas are experiencing some of the same problems and challenges that we have. And they have the same goals, same desires that we have, okay? And that as a community, that we need to reach out to them and to show them that there is answers to their problems that they are currently experiencing.
The message is, I was born and raised in the Chicago streets, urban America, right outside my door. These same problems was going on. You had the drugs, lack of education. You had a lot of things. Right now, 39% of America saying marriage is going to be obsolete, single-family households, all these was a problem. They want to get rid of marriage and exploit, dating and make it like this is a really good thing. And, just the trials and tribulations coming up in these circumstances, I'm grateful to Allah that I did find Islam and did grasp on to some of these good moral concepts, staying away from drugs, doing things that won't hurt other people, just having respect for humanity, period. A lot of these concepts, how to respect women, guard yourself against, sexuality and things like this. And, it's steadily, a lot of moral values in America, urban America is declining, where they promoting gay marriages, homosexuality, and where the concept of marriage, is being separated. So I think when we look for an answer, we should focus on Islam, that got solutions, good family values, and these type of things.
Let's get Ahmed Nouruddin's viewpoint, please.
Well, I think that as Khalifatul Masih is calling us to do, we should all try to get involved in tabligh and in spreading this message to all of the different groups of people, not only in the urban settings, but all around this nation, because it's truly the answer for the problems which people are facing today. Myself, I grew up in the inner city area, and it started out with somebody inviting me and taking the time to explain these things to me, and I began to understand that, and then I accepted that. Right. And many more hundreds of thousands and millions of people will do the same thing if we do what we're supposed to do. Right. So that's what I would like to say in the end.
Okay. I'd like to thank our panelists and our audience for giving us such a great discussion. And I would like to thank our audience at home as well for tuning in. If you would like to give us your feedback, the email address is realtalk@mta.tv. Our official web address is www.mta.tv/realtalk. And if you would like to follow us on Twitter, our address is MTA_realtalk. And again, I'd like to thank our panelists and our audience. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum.
Well, the short time that we had over in the US has unfortunately come to an end. Alhamdulillah, we've been able to film a number of programs that I'm sure you've enjoyed watching over the last few weeks. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's helped us over there, and I hope you've enjoyed our programs and our special US edition of Real Talk.
I'm with you, I'm with you. This was a program, really, that somehow I always, when I came to the UK, was hoping could happen in USA. When I came to UK a few times and I met some of the young men who are working for MTA, and I was so impressed by them that my eyes became transfixed, and my mind was starting to project that, oh, if only we could do something like this in USA, because this is exactly what our youth need, to experience this ride and to understand what a wonderful ride it can be, and also to tap into their talents. I came here one day and some people said, yeah, that's great, you know, I think we would like to come to America. And one thing led to another. So I can say, beyond words of appreciation to Allah and to Hazur and to the MTA Department of UK for taking on this challenge.
Concept was that it's not just making the show in a different location, but also invigorating the youth to get involved in MTA and to get involved in this program. And we saw that happening. So when the MTA team, you know, through the process, after it was approved and after it started to you know, get closer to the date in November, we felt you know, a sense of excitement. There was also a sense of nervousness.
The day the team showed up, that's the day we were able to get behind the wheel. And I witnessed the transformation of so many young people who had been on that margin, always looking into the game, always, in fact, wanting to be part of it, but didn't know how to connect, how to get involved. And I watched them on that first night. The excitement in the room was amazing.
I think it came back down to you have to really believe. And so, you know, in my heart, I felt, look, this is what our beloved Khalifa wants from us. We have to put our best foot forward, and we have to try to do something and give it the best that we have.
This was real. This was raw for them. This was their emotions of just the pure joy of welcoming a group that's come all the way from, they felt came from Hazur, came from London, to give them this chance once again, and to motivate them, to encourage them, to train them, to teach them, to show them, to give them all the skills, and to give them that capacity to produce things like they've always wanted to. And I've heard those voices of people telling me, you know, alhamdulillah, you can't imagine what this was like for me. I've always dreamed about this.
This show is like a prayer answered, because I love this show. Like when I found out that this was a show, Real Talk, like it was something I've always wanted to see on MTA, and something for people to relate to. So I'm really happy that this show is.
Working on Real Talk USA was a wonderful opportunity. It gave us a chance to
to do something meaningful and work with what I'd have to call true professionals, the ones from MTA International. You know, working with them they really set an example, and one that I hope we can go forward with, inshallah.
That first step for them was, hey, I can do this, and it feels good, and let's keep going. And after that, they started becoming what this crew in UK was. What I always call them, you people are just obsessed. You're mad. You're wonderful. And that energy I began to see rise up in that room, in that crowd, and it not only rose from that first day, the word spread. It's kind of like saying, hey, come on down here. You know, it's just really happening.
We had made a number of plans. We had made plans for 5 recordings, back-to-back, trainings, having a lot of the khuddam from the region here, coming in vans, and people from Philadelphia, and there was a lot of excitement. Now, all of those things didn't work according to the plan, like everything didn't work out, but alhamdulillah, a lot of those did work out, right?
DC, the word spread to brothers in Chicago and in Philadelphia, and we went up to New York City, and the word spread there. It preceded us, so by the time we got there, you could see their faces like they were so anxious, like, oh, here they are, you know, let's go and do this. So it was so wonderful, and to have the tour not just be in one place, but to move from city to city, and to go with this newly created energy and spirit, and begin touch more and more young lives and young minds and young visions, to inspire them and to motivate them and direct and channel their energies to keep it going now. Even when we leave, is keep it going. And we've seen that happen. That after the team left and the final cut was, okay, it's a wrap, Real Talk USA is all finished. They said, no, it's not finished. We won't let you finish this now because this is what we wanted to start, and you gave us the start now. You gave us a new birth, a new chance, and we want to run with it.
You know, we're feeling like, I hope this continues, and we hope and pray that we can now build on this momentum, on this great opportunity. So after they left, we have made a commitment, and we're trying to live up to that commitment.
Well, so it obviously seemed like a tremendous challenge, and my experience in doing this as a type of Jamaat work is that, you know, Allah definitely makes up our shortcomings.
Alhamdulillah, it was a blessing. And I guess the only other thing on kind of again, a personal note, that I had a chance to visualize a dream and to see the dream come true in a lifetime. And you know, what greater blessing can a person have in life than that? To really desire something in your mind and Allah blesses you in a way that you can actually see it come to pass in your lifetime. And know that you played a little role, humble as small as it may have been, in getting something like that started in another nation. So for me, it was truly an honor and a pleasure.
Mini.
And this program, I'm just waiting for the car to go by. Join us just after a few minutes. Can I do that again, please?
With millions of Americans living in the inner cities.
Okay, but first, let's take a short break, and we'll look at the. Oh man, I can never get that part. What's that called? The walk on the street? Word on the street. Okay, okay. Word on the street. Okay. But first, let's get our viewers at home more in tune with the topic of today, and we'll do that by looking at the meat on the street. Sorry, that's not the meat on the street, is it? It's the word on the street. Okay.
Immediately after the production,
but what's the impression so far on US?
So far, everything here is big. This is how I'm going to sleep. This is my nightclothes, actually.
Well, basically, I'm making the stage at the moment. I like to be quite hands-on with these programs. So.
The issues that people are confronted with in the...
Stay tuned for talk.
Prophecy, because we're all part of the West. Most of us are born and raised here, so every person who accepts Islam, in a sense.
I think we have to stop for a bit there.
Saved by the bell.
So in this, in the second.
The requirement of keeping up with the Joneses is becoming much and more.
All right, look at the camera real quick.
On today's episode of Real Talk of urban life in America.
Back at the panel and see what they have to say.